Functional programming. So functional programming is basically a programming paradigm. So what does paradigm mean is it's similar to like we have OOPS, right? Object oriented programming. It's a way, just a second. It's a way like how we write our software or how we write our code basically. And it defines some fundamental principles like how the code should be structured and all those things. So similar in OOPS, we used to use class object oriented ways of creating classes and object and write code. Over here, we make use of functional programming paradigm. So it has few rules and things like which we should follow while working with functional programming. So it's not something like a specific topic. This thing you will learn like while you will be building softwares. So when you'll be working with JavaScript heavily, then you will come understand these things like how these things matter and what are the like common practices which we should follow for writing big applications. So there are few terms to know for functional programming. So yeah, so it is there's something called pure functions. So as the principles of function programming, we tries to follow these all things which we have written over here. There's called something called pure function. What is mean is pure function is a function which gives same all input, like which when we give some input to it, it will always return the same value and it won't have any side effect. So what does it mean? So suppose if I have a function called add and it takes in two value and it returns a plus b, right? So if I call add with 1 and 2, it doesn't matter like how many time I call it with these same parameter, it will always return me the same. It will always give me the same output. So this is kind of a pure function. It is not doing anything. It's just directly taking the inputs and giving the value. It is not changing anything. It's not like if I pass it, if I call this function with these parameter 5 times, it will give me some other input output. If that happens, then it is not a pure function. And it doesn't do anything apart from like returning the result. So it is not changing some any global variable or it's not having any logging or anything. These are called pure functions. So we have some inbuilt functions also, which are pure functions. So we have something called map, reduce, and filter. So these are function being mostly used on objects and arrays. All the like variables which are iterable, like in which we can iterate through, we can make use of dot map, dot reduce, dot filter function. You can check out like what each of these do and you can read about it. Then there's called something called function composition. So function composition, like as name says, it means like it is a process kind of combining two functions together. So suppose if I have a function, uh, yeah, so suppose we have a function called split and join for the string. So suppose I have a string ABC. So I can do string dot split. I can split it from spaces and I can do join, right? So what function composition means, it is like combining two functions together to create a new function. So what I can do is I can do like create a new function called a, which takes in a string and returns me a modified string with some changes to it. So this is kind of function composition. I can easily combine these two functions to create a new function. So like we should take care in mind, like while working with functional programming, like while writing the code, it should be so like easy and separate from each other that we can easily combine them if needed. Suppose if I want to combine two functionally, it should be easily doable. Then there is something called shared state. What shared state means is between two function there should not be any variable which is shared. Like two functions should not be modifying a common variable. Whenever we want to do some changes to some values, what we do is we pass them as parameter. The function do the changes and it returns us a new value. It don't change the value which we have passed. This way, like we prevent the side effects also. So we are sure like no one is changing the value of our of our variables which are declared outside the functions. So we should take care of these things. Then we have something called mutating state. This I told like after sharing, like we should not be mutate changing the values of the shared state thing. And then we have avoid side effect. Like changes of one function should not be affecting another changes. So suppose mm, I have a function which creates a list, suppose, right? I have a function which does something. It creates a list of elements basically. Then I have a function b which creates a it creates a list of element from data, and this is modifying data. So now like it's not changing the behavior of this function, it is just so I can like when I can get let it name is get new data. So this function, what it does, it just gets a new data from some source and returns it to me. And this function takes care of showing that data in my list view or something. So these two are independent. This function won't have any side effect on this. And even any third function which is used, we can use these two. It can fetch in data from this function, b function, and can use it to create some list item using a function. So they all are like kind of independent. I can combine these two together within a third function. They don't affect each other. They are not affecting a common state, and they both are kind of pure function. It gets its own data and just returns it. It's not doing anything else. So these are kind of things like which we should take care while coding and while like building large projects. It's not necessary to follow it every time, but like we should try to stick to these as much as we can to be a better programmer. So yeah, it will help a lot in how we structure our codes and all those things. And it also makes it easy for testing purpose also. Suppose later on you find a bug, you know exactly like which function might be causing it. You know like it cannot affect any other functionality, so you can just check that specific part of your code to debug it. So it helps a lot in those scenarios. I have added a article. It's kind of a series on functional programming. It covers all these topic in depth. It can be too much also at the moment, but you can go through this slowly through each article within this series. Like whenever you get time, you can go through it. Yeah. Thanks. I think it was all I had for today.
Yeah, I think we can give some practice, like practice link for practice question for the ES6, because most of the concept was from the ES6. So
For
either we can.
ES6, I have added this third link. It is a free code camp. So
Mm-hmm.
you can go to ES6 section and it pretty much covers all the syntax which we have read. So you'll have a hands-on experience while working on this thing. So I would
Acha.
recommend to read this. These are like I think around 30 small exercises you can do within an hour at max, half an hour or 2 hours.
Perfect, perfect. So I will post this on the like the Notion board card of the like 18th or 18th November card. I will post these resources and the practice questions which you have to complete. Perfect.
I have the link of
Yeah,
it with
sure.
you. You can share
Sure.
that.
Hmm.
Yeah, that will work.
Cool. Any questions?
Any
थोड़ा ज़्यादा हो गया
No, sir.
आज वैसे.
Yeah, like
But
multi-use
stretch.
and more. But these are like very small things, and like in case you miss any of those,
Yes, exactly.
information, whatever.
Hmm. I think Ria has already slept. One. ठीक है.
I would suggest like all of you guys to try out these ES6 syntax with the free code camp exercise and see
Yes,
like what play around with it, like in your code sandbox or Apple.it to see how things work.
exactly, and
It will help.
mostly with the export and the import thing. You should try making multiple modules. Try with export default, uh, exporting variable, importing variables, like exporting function, or by exporting in multiple at a time. So that thing will.
So like for the project thing, so you built your own portfolio using React, right? What
Mhm.
you can do is you can separate all your data to a new file and create an object. You can have all the data within that object structure. If it is an array of project, you can create an array thing within that object. You can export the data from that file and use this object destructuring and all those syntax to create your index.js file. You can try
Correct,
that out.
correct. Maybe
You'll
Sagar,
get.
can you give a little PRD, like 4 or 5 lines documentation? Just
Hi, I
some
can
points, just
post
some point
it.
that you have to follow these things. Like make a project section, project module, project data, and skill section.
Yeah, I'll share with you. Like we can join
Perfect.
together. And
ठीक है. Guys, any question? Any other question?
everyone for
Yeah.
being there for the time. Now you can sleep. Uh,
Okay, guys. Bye
Thank you
bye.
both of you too.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.